Good evening and welcome to our channel, the one and only Physics Point. And this is the lecture number 4. In the previous lectures, we have just discussed about the types of chemical reactions on the basis of the number of reactants and number of products are included in that type of chemical reactions. And we are classified two types of the chemical reaction. One is the combination reaction. In that reactions, two or more reactants are combined to each other to form a single product. This reaction is known as combination reactions. And second one type is the decomposition reaction. In the chemical reaction in which a single reactants are decomposed to form two or more products, this chemical reaction is known as decomposition reaction. These two classifications are on the basis of number of reactants and products are included in the chemical reactions. After that, again two types chemical reactions are discussed. These are on the basis of exchanging of the number of ions or number of elements or number of reactants or the part of reactants in that chemical reaction. There are two types of chemical reactions. One is a displacement, another is a double displacement. The high reactive or more reactive ions gets replaced to the less reactive ions. This is the displacement reactions. Or these displacement reactions are happens twice in a single chemical reaction. This is called as the double displacement reactions, or exchanging of elements to each other in the reactant to form a product. This is called as the double displacement reaction. And this is the lecture number 4. And in these lectures, we are again discussing two types of again chemical reactions. And these two type chemical reactions are depends on the exchanging of energy to that reactants or product from the surrounding or the chemicals to that surrounding. If the chemicals are release some amount of heat to the surrounding, these are one another type of reactions, or emit the evolve the heat to the surrounding, or some chemicals are absorb some heat from the surrounding. This is another type of the reactants. And these chemical reactions or equations is called as endothermic and exothermic reactions respectively. If the chemical reactions are absorb some heat from the surrounding and they are converted into the product, this chemical reaction is called as the endothermic reactions. For example, the ice cube, we have taken the hand one of the ice cubes, and these ice cubes are absorb some amount of the heat from the surrounding and they are converted into the product, or they are converted into the water. That means the internal energy or heat or temperature of the water is more than the temperature of the ice. And these are the endothermic reactions. When we are doing some chemical practicals of the chemistry in the labs, then we added some different amount of the different type of the chemicals in the test tube, and sometimes test tube gets warm. That means these chemicals are release some amount of heat to the surrounding. These are the exothermic heats. The two types of the chemical reactions are depends on the emission of heat or absorption of heat. There are classified two types. One is the endothermic and another is the exothermic. That is endothermic. Thermic means heat. Endothermic and exothermic reaction. Endothermic and exothermic reaction. This is the very smallest videos or smallest lectures. Endothermic reaction, the heat is the, or in the chemical reaction, in the chemical reaction, heat is, in the chemical reaction, heat is absorbed by, heat is absorbed by the surrounding, by the surrounding. This chemical reaction is called as endothermic chemical reactions. In the chemical reactions, heat is absorbed. Heat is absorbed from the surrounding is called, this reaction is called, this reaction is called endothermic reaction. Endo means inside, exo means outside. And exo means outside and endo means inside. This reaction is called as endothermic reaction. This reaction is called as the endothermic reaction. Endothermic reaction. When we apply some temperature to the ice cube, ice plus heat, they are converted into the water. This is a general equations which we can be written in the word form, that is ice. It is as similar to water. We apply some amount of heat to the ice, they are converted into the water. That means the heat is absorbed, or the ice is absorbed some amount of heat from the surrounding, then it can convert it into the water. For example, when the calcium carbonate is dissolved in water, H2O. This is the another type of the reaction. These are the exothermic reactions, and they are converted into the calcium bihydroxide plus carbon dioxide, and the heat is released. This is the another type of examples. That's why I written in the different color chalks. This is the exothermic reactions. Heat is released from the reactant, and this is the heat is absorbed by the reactants. Then in the endothermic reactions, the temperature of the product is more than the temperature of reactants. The temperature or heat, the temperature of the product, the temperature of the product is more than the temperature of reactant. The chemical reactions, they gives absorb some amount of heat from the surrounding. Then we apply some amount of heat, that is calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate plus heat. The calcium carbonates are gets break down to form the calcium oxide plus carbon dioxide. And the calcium carbonates is absorb some amount of heat. When heating the calcium carbonate, they are converted into the calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. The calcium oxide and carbon dioxide are more temperature, they have more temperature than the calcium carbonate reactants. Then the second type of the reaction is exothermic reaction, the chemical reaction in which the chemical reaction which is emit the heat, or which is evolve the heat, which is emits the heat, or evolve some amount of heat, evolve the heat to the surrounding, to the surrounding. This chemical reaction is called as exothermic reaction. This reaction is called exothermic reaction. In a chemical reaction, the heat is emitted. That means we feel the lot of warmth of the product than the reactant. When we dissolve two or more reactants or two or more chemical compounds in a single test tube, we feel the test tube gets warm. That means these are the exothermic reaction. That means the heat energy is released, or energy is released in the form of heat. This is called as the exothermic reaction. That means the energy or the temperature of reactants, the temperature of the reactant is more as compared to, as compared to temperature of product, more as compared to temperature of product. That means that heat is released to the surrounding. That means this second example, calcium carbonate is dissolved in the water to give the calcium dihydroxide, and heat. This is one of the example of exothermic reactions. When we are dissolve some washing soda in the water, the soap solutions gets heated, or the soap solutions are more temperature or more heat than they have more temperature than the reactants, or than the separate water and soap solution, sodium bicarbonate. This is another examples of the exothermic reactions. The same example, when the calcium carbonates are dissolved in the water, they are converted into the calcium dihydroxide, sometimes carbon, calcium carbon and dihydroxide plus heat. We feel the more temperature of H2, that means these are the exothermic reaction. If we added two or more reactants to form a product, these products are feeling cool, that means these are the endothermic reactions. If we feel hot of that test tube after the reaction, these are the exothermic reactions. In that reaction, product have less temperature than the reactants, and in the endothermic reactions, product have more temperature than the reactants. These are the basic difference between the endothermic and exothermic reaction. This is the lecture number 4. In the next lectures, we are trying to discuss about the rate of chemical reactions and the which factor the rate of chemical reaction gets affected. And the rate of chemical reaction, that means the how the chemical reactions are acted, or the rate, if the chemical reaction taken the less time to complete converted the reactant to the product or complete the reactions, this means they have the more rate of reactions. If the chemical reactions taken the more time to convert the reactant to the product, that means they have less amount of rate of chemical reaction. These rate of chemical reactions are affected by the size, particle size, reactants, temperature, reactivity, size of particles, as well as the catalyst which are tried to be converted reacted into the product doesn't involve its